Turn to the left.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
what the fuck is that?
okay. Hey, he's cool. Don't do nothing I wouldn't do. Anyway, high five one more time. I missed.
It's dark.
Oh, it is very dark. Stairway to Hell. Ugh. That's tempting. Can I go?
I hit myself in the head with the microphone.
You alright? Look at this photograph.
Every time I do it makes me laugh.
God.
You know the next line?
Yeah,
My eyes get so red or something.
Why were I so red? And what is that on someone's head? I forget.
Yeah.
On Jimmy's head? I can't remember. But all I know is that Nickelback is a band that I have had mixed feelings about throughout my life.
It's like a guilty pleasure at most.
I remember listening to their first few albums, and I remember it was like their fourth album. I was just like, yeah, tuned out.
Yeah.
I think it was Black Horse, I think was the name of it. It was, again, there were some songs that were bangers on their earlier albums, like really good, heavy stuff, but at the same time, you know, there wasn't enough substance to it to really justify its existence.
Very tweeny.
Middle of the road.
Yeah.
That's basically where their rock albums were, is like all middle of the road all the time, never deviating too far.
No standout, nothing.
No,
yeah,
no.
that's real talk.
And I think that's why some people gravitated towards them, because they were a safe bet for a certain style that they liked. But eventually, people get sick of that same style over and over and over and over again, and crave something new. And yeah, Nickelback just wasn't.
Still haven't got
band.
that yet. Nickelback, where's that at?
No. Anyway, we got Nickelback, How They Became the Most Hated Band Ever by Sunny V2. Again, everyone out there wants us to watch more Sunny V2, so I'm all about it.
Might as well, right?
Let's go ahead and get to it. Here we go. This is how Nickelback became the most hated band ever. Period.
How did Nickelback come to be universally hated by everyone? Well, hatred began with something completely out of Nickelback's control and was rather related to the opinion held by another popular public figure. In 2003, approximately 8 years after Nickelback was created, a comedian by the name of Brian Posehn would appear on a Comedy Central talk show titled Tough Crowd, during which he would make a joke.
Yeah. I remember that one, dude. That was a fucking great show because it was all sides of, like, you know, you had people who were more conservative, more liberal, you know, like clashing.
Oh,
and
no
then you had
punches
Colin
were
Quinn.
held.
Yeah, and you had Colin Quinn right in the middle, just be like, okay, let's calm it down. Let's actually talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I love that.
Patrice
about
O'Neal.
bad music.
Dude, Patrice was on there all the time. It was him. Nikki DiPaolo was on there a lot.
Yeah.
Greg Giraldo, rest in peace,
Is it
Giraldo,
Norton?
and Patrice. Say what?
Jim Norton.
Yeah,
Was he
Norton was
there?
on there some as well. And I think Bill Burr was on there a few
Probably,
times.
yeah. Burr was probably on there quite a bit.
Well, because that was around the time that Chappelle's show was
Hi.
and
Oh,
it's-
yeah.
yeah,
Comedy
and-
Central's on fire at this point.
yeah, early 2000s, because, you know, South Park started it. Chappelle's show took it to the next level. Then you had a bunch of other stuff come in. And then after that, you had Mind of Mencia, and then very slowly it just started to plane
when
out.
Mind of Mencia dropped, that was like the that was the flat point.
Yeah, that was...
And then it just
yeah.
slowly dipped off.
Music making people violent, before using Nickelback as an example.
Bad music makes people violent. Like Nickelback makes me want to kill Nickelback.
At the time, the other hosts on the show didn't even know who Nickelback was, yet Brian Posehn continued to reassure them with conviction that the band was truly horrible.
I'm so old, I don't even know who Nickelback is.
I'll have to agree with Nick.
They're not good. They're horrible. Just trust me.
Now, you'd probably assume that this one little comment wasn't enough to make the entire world hate Nickelback, right? Well, the problem was, instead of this comment being a small thing in a relatively obscure episode on Comedy Central, the joke was actually featured in the station's main commercial, which was broadcast to millions for a period of over 6 months. With it, the hatred for Nickelback began to go viral, which was outlined by one user on Reddit who stated, "The joke was on every Tough Crowd promo and nearly all the time. After hearing this joke during every promo for a couple of weeks, I began to hear everyone at my middle school begin to mock Nickelback mercilessly. The worthwhile part of that repetitive commercial was of course the punchline, listening to Nickelback makes me want to kill Nickelback. The whisper down the lane aspect of the joke telling allowed the origin to slowly disappear until even people unfamiliar with modern music music knew there was something detestable about Nickelback. Internet meme culture would then facilitate the hatred in the late noughties and early 2010s.
The only thing I want to hear right now is the sweet sound of this Nickelback CD cracking as I drive over it repeatedly.
With articles such as the 14 most brutal Nickelback memes of all time, featuring bangers such as Still a Better Band Than Nickelback, Parents Surprise Him with Concert Tickets, Nickelback, and due to a coal shortage, Santa will be giving all bad little boys and girls Nickelback CDs. In addition to this, a company by the name of Oxlabs would develop a Chrome extension by the name of Nickelblock, never see Nickelback on the internet again.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And by 2012, even Adam Sandler was jumping in on the hate train with a tweet reading, "If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, then have we found the perfect location for a Nickelback concert?"
Oh man.
Kind of a trend and kind of, you know,
cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, it started to become sort of like a almost a constant, and it hurt.
What Mike Kroger seemed to imply in that clip was that much of the Nickelback hatred was spreading simply because other people hated Nickelback. And those other people who hated Nickelback hated them because someone else hated Nickelback before them. This whole phenomenon was outlined hilariously in a Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan episode.
It's the same reason everybody hates Nickelback. Because the internet says so.
Yet this song feels like too simple of an explanation. Why did Brian Posehn choose to rip on Nickelback in the first place? Why didn't he choose a different band? Why was his conviction so strong that he attempted to convince the other hosts on the show of how bad Nickelback was? Well, perhaps it was because he was being forced to listen to them against his will. In 2002, just a year prior to Brian Posehn making his viral comment about Nickelback being terrible, the band's most famous song, How You Remind Me, was crowned as the most played radio song of 2002, and by 2009, it was crowned as the most played radio song of the decade, having been spun on air over 1.2 million times. Just to give you an idea about how crazy that number is, in 2002 there was never a given second on American radio that How You Remind Me wasn't being played on any one station.
In the United States, at the time that the album came out, they say that at any given second in those days, that song was in play. There was never a moment in that year when it wasn't playing.
Perhaps rather than hating the band for the music itself, people were sick of Nickelback being shoved down their throats by radio stations throughout the 2000s. While these days we consume music by choosing what we want to listen to on YouTube or Spotify, this luxury didn't exist in 2002. Unless you had a specific CD, you were at the mercy of whatever the radio decided to play, and with every station blasting How You Remind Me all day, every day, it seemed Nickelback was inescapable. While this must have been great in terms of exposing Nickelback to the world, perhaps it went a little too far. How many of you guys have unfollowed an influencer or a friend on Facebook because they post 50 different times per day? Or have you ever had a friend force you to watch a piece of media, whether it be a song, video, or movie, and because you didn't choose to watch it, it feels uncomfortable and you just want it to end? It seemed as though this is how the world felt during Nickelback's blow-up, as summarized beautifully in an article written about the band. The song became too big. It never stopped playing. It was everywhere. Its legacy is that it introduced people to Nickelback. In doing so, it became a signpost, a specific moment in time when you met the thing you hate. Now it's hated by association.
I can see that because, again, the overpopularity is something that when it happens to some people, sometimes they don't really have a choice in the matter. For instance, the song Informer by Snow. He never expected that song to go anywhere when he put it out. And because of the internet hating Snow because they just think, oh, it's a white boy trying to, take black music and, because what would this Canadian know about reggae? What would this Canadian know about, Rasclad and, Patois and all that? When people don't know, the dude, Snow, actually grew up around Jamaicans and is actually a legit criminal because of his dealings with certain criminals in the Jamaican people he ran with.
It's more than his appearance.
Yeah. And again, people didn't know this, and because he couldn't tour or anything like that, all of a sudden everybody hated Snow and was just clowning on him because that was on In Living Color. Because you had Jim Carrey do the parody song Impasta.
Oh, true.
I'm the white boy now. And again, you had that, and you had so many other people just being like, oh, he's the Vanilla Ice of Canada. I'm like, no, Vanilla Ice, I can understand people disliking him because, him trying to act tough and all that, because that really ain't his thing. Again, and also Vanilla Ice got really popular around that time too, and both of them kind of got hated on the same flavor. But a bunch of reggae artists respect the shit out of Snow.
Oh, I believe that.
They do. They, especially in Canada.
If he's homegrown too, like,
yeah.
why wouldn't
they respect the fuck out of Snow?
Yeah.
And actually, it shows later on because he was part of a #1 hit again, just to think of a couple years ago, and it was like his reintroduction into like the music world. And a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, I remember that song. And then you actually do research and you find out about him. And it's like, oh shit, he's actually legit.
He's legitimate, yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just because he wanted to be cool. He did it because he actually is like all about the music.
Yeah, hell yeah,
but
man.
Anyway, sorry.
Don't judge a book by its cover, yeah.
Now, in order for the song to have been getting that much airtime in the first place, some people must have been enjoying it. Yet Mike Kroger would go on to state that much of the success they achieved as a result of the song would eventually turn into hatred.
The time at which Nickelback began to suck started shortly after we started to sell millions and millions of albums. And everybody loves an underdog until they're no longer the underdog, and then once you're not the underdog anymore, that's when you start to suck.
Mike Kroger's theory that people hated the band simply because they were successful was certainly plausible, as a Finnish academic study on the hatred of Nickelback found that between 2000 and 2014, the more successful Nickelback got, the worse their reviews grew, which was supported by a user
It's
on
like
Reddit
a gift
who
and a
wrote,
curse phenomenon.
It is. And again, I would say the biggest thing with Nickelback is if they would have changed up their style a little bit more and not done the same kind of music over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe they would have been better received. And people would have just been like, oh, it's the same middle-of-the-road rock about... Yeah, and again, you look at something long enough and you dissect it enough, you're eventually going to find something that you don't like about it. And when you focus on nothing but that, yeah, you're going to hate it.
Well, yeah, it sounds like they just got put under the microscope, and then just strictly from being under the microscope, records were bought.
Yeah.
And then hell unleashed on them.
And again, I remember when people hated Linkin Park for the same thing, because I remember when the song "In the End" was on every radio station and would not stop me playing. And here's the thing, I think that song's okay. It's not their best song, but the fact that it got to be their most popular song, again,
you understand that?
Yeah, I understand how people grew to hate Linkin Park. It's just like, as you know, everybody hated Mike Shinoda because he was rapping over top of it. I'm like, dude, that's the how the song was composed.
That's pretty unique for that time.
Well, again, yeah, and with Chester, rest in peace, Chester, screaming and making, just you feel the angst and anger in his voice, and people would assume, oh, it's like a bunch of middle class white dudes, and what do they have to be angry about? Then you actually read up on what happened to Chester when he was a kid, and you find out that this dude mentally was wrecked because of just how much he was abused as a kid.
You can hear the pain in his voice.
You can. And Mike, again, as a fan of rap and everything like that, and also the fact that he studied psychology and everything, he understands the mental strife that people can go through. And whenever he raps about stuff like that, people are just like, oh, look at him trying to be cool, trying to rap. And it's like, when you listen to his raps, he's not trying to be gangster.
Not at all.
He's trying to be introspective and trying to, he's basically trying to be like how Rakim was.
Yeah, facts. He talks about shit. And
yeah.
That's such a bad stigma for hip hop, man. I can't stand that.
It's like when you're trying to be introspective, it's just like, oh, they're trying to be cool when they rap. It's like, no, they're trying to be introspective and express themselves and trying to rap. Again, rap is a form of expression.
No doubt.
And if you can scream, music, you can scream, you can rap, you can do a guitar solo, you can do a keyboard solo. What you are evoking, the emotions that you are evoking with your music is your expression.
Yeah,
how you do it. And people who hate on you for that because they perceive it one way when in truth it's something completely different. It's just,
you can't control it, man, but that's the power of believing in what you do.
Yeah.
The only reason that so many people seem to hate Nickelback is because of how popular they are.
Nickelback could have stopped, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They still made millions of dollars.
If they would have stopped right there, I guarantee you, that would have been that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I guarantee you, if Nickelback would have stopped and Chad Kroeger would have done a solo career thing, because they talked about that when the Spider-Man movie came out, and he did that song with Josie Scott, and they say that a hero.
Okay, word.
When they did that song, he talked about a lot of people were like, "Hey, does this mean that Nickelback's gonna, you're gonna have a solo career and this and that?" And he's like, "And if he would have done a solo career, when Nickelback was at their peak like this, I think the hate against Nickelback would have subsided, and people would have probably focused on Chad Kroeger and been like, oh, Nickelback, they were around and they were annoying, but they're not here anymore.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But again, I don't know.
It's all hearsay there.
Albums worldwide.
Yeah.
It didn't help that certain media outlets literally had a policy where they weren't allowed to write positive stories about Nickelback. Mike Kroeger explained that he met a former journalist for Rolling Stone who had written a positive review of a Nickelback album while working for the media company, yet Rolling Stone never allowed the journalist to post it simply because it was positive.
And this journalist said, hey, I got to tell you a story. He was asked to review one of our albums, and he wrote a very, very detailed and well thought out review of the album, and it was positive. He took it to his editor, and his editor just said, I'm not going to print this, because we here at Rolling Stone are very anti-Nickelback. We do not like Nickelback. We can't write good things about Nickelback.
Wow.
And if this was the narrative being held by the media, it's hardly surprising to discover that there have been countless other negative articles on the band, although to be fair, some of them have certainly been a result of Nickelback's poor decisions. For example, in 2006, the Nickelback frontman was stopped by police for speeding in his luxury Lamborghini sports car. A breath test found he had nearly twice the legal limit of alcohol in his system. Along similar lines, in an interview with Playboy, Chad Kroeger bragged about once having drunk 13 Corona beers in a row, stating that he can down a Corona in 5 or 6 seconds. Although while their drinking habits, along with their love for car chases, explosions, and big boobs,
what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
That's every man's man.
If he's a dude and he enjoys that stuff, hey, it just means that he's into masculine stuff. I mean, what's wrong with that?
probably just made their audience love them even more. One thing that they would do in 2008 might actually qualify as the first thing done by Nickelback themselves to have a genuine impact on their reputation. In fact, this thing was so detrimental that the Finnish academic study we mentioned earlier anchored it as the main reason behind the band's poor reputation, and it began when they wrote a song by the name of Rockstar in 2005. 3 years after releasing the song, it was licensed to DFS Furniture for an advertisement, which was so terrible that it put a dent in the band's
Yeah, the commercial ain't helping the song.
Yeah. You see, okay, here's the thing. Chad's talked about this. Chad has talked, the band, the Black Keys.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the band, the Black Keys. I like them a lot. Chad basically says, oh, yeah. It's like, oh, so the CVS, it's like, oh, yeah. It's like, oh, they make good songs for, like, Apple iPod commercials. Here's the thing I told Chad. I'm like, show me one. And they haven't. Like, again, like, everyone wants to talk about the commercialization of like music and all that, and I think to a certain degree, yeah, commercialization can have a damaging effect on the overall impact that an artist can have. This right here, for instance, is one that I would say would definitely have a hampering effect on the overall popularity.
Bro.
But I would also say that the song like Light My Fire, because that was another one back in the 60s, the Doors leased out the song Light My Fire. No, it's the 70s, sorry. They licensed it out to Volkswagen, and the song played on TV, and a lot of people said that the Doors sold out. Now, selling out is something that, again, the concept of selling out depends on who you talk to. Because there are some people out there who say, oh yeah, Metallica sold out when they made the Black Album. Metallica sold out when they made a music video. It's like,
what?
Again, like, people can say that all they want, but at the same time, like, if they're still making music that you listen to and you're like tapping your foot to, are they really selling out? I mean, because again, if they're not sacrificing their artistic integrity, but instead their artistic integrity is changing the culture. For instance, Stevie Wonder changed pop music forever when he did his like 5 albums of his classic era. From Music in My Mind to Songs in the Key of Life, he never once sacrificed his artistic integrity to write a song that was poppy and fresh. Instead, he changed pop music.
No doubt.
Pop music adapted to Stevie Wonder.
No doubt.
Stevie Wonder didn't adapt to pop music. You see, that's the thing. When you are the one that changes the culture of pop music and you shift it in a direction, then
You're the pioneer.
you're the pioneer.
Yeah.
And you're not a sellout for doing that. And because, again, Metallica, when they wrote riffs that, were still heavy, but yet everyone wanted to listen to, for instance, just because someone gets popular enough to be like, someone said, it's like, dude, I was cranking my Metallica records and all that in my room. My sister was across the hall. She was cranking like her Leif Garrett and her Motley Crue, stuff like that. But then all of a sudden one day my sister came in and asked to borrow my Metallica album. I wasn't a Metallica fan anymore after that. I'm like, you're gonna be mad because they wrote riffs that both you and your sister like? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, true.
Like, come on, dude.
That's crazy.
That's again, don't.
That's madness.
That is crazy to think about that. And it's like, it's like rap music nowadays. You think Snoop Dogg's pissed that a lot of his fans are like Karens and all that? You know, like the soccer moms and all that.
Money is still green.
Hey, money is money, and that's the whole thing. That's
all Snoop's thinking about with that.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's just like all these church groups running over and mowing over all these like rap albums back in the 80s and 90s. It's like, this is filth disseminating on this country. As Eazy-E said it best, like, they bought them.
They bought the album.
They
yeah,
bought them,
you bought it, man.
It's like, hey, it's their money. They bought
y'all
them.
Do what y'all want to do.
Exactly.
With that.
It's like, hey, I ain't gonna say nothing against that.
Hell
but
no.
come on, man.
But there's a fine line, just to impact on your point, between being creative, again, and then selling out.
Yeah.
Being experimental is probably a better way to put it, or experimental.
Yeah.
Is much different than selling out. But that's all I gotta say on that.
Yeah.
Branding was, as mentioned previously, about metal, beers, and the same things Middle America likes. Therefore, licensing their music to a commercial that looked like this felt a little bit inauthentic. Now, we can probably all agree that it feels like a bit of a stretch to claim that Nickelback's worldwide hatred came about as a result of one relatively obscure furniture advertisement. However, according to the Finnish study, the issue Antonin writes is about the perception of authenticity. Rock critics like to think of themselves as protectors of originality, and they perceived Nickelback to be a bunch of sellouts, true to their money rather than the art.
Yeah, Lance Bangs, again, during the 70s and 80s, he basically said, metal's dead, man. Metal's dead. Punk rock is here to stay. Punk rock killed metal. And then Lance Bangs dies, and then all of a sudden, here comes all these like huge metal bands of the 80s, and metal makes a huge comeback. AC/DC releases Back in Black.
Yeah.
Metallica comes out with
Maiden in there.
Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
Yeah.
Again, all these rock critics and everything wanted to shit on metal, and like I remember when the first Black Sabbath album, which is considered one of the cornerstones of metal music and like the originator for a lot of people's like musical tastes. Mm-hmm. And what do you read in the Rolling Stone is like a bunch of drab nonsense. That's just it's like, yeah, fuck off, Lance.
Yeah, fuck that, dude.
Like again, I respect artists and I respect critics for, like I respect the shit out of Anthony Fantano for the amount of music that he absorbs and like talks about, but at the same time, some of his opinions that he's had on certain albums, I've just been like, did we listen to the same album, dude? And again, it's just about different interpretations,
narrative
different
push,
people.
yeah.
Perhaps it was less about them being in the background of a furniture ad and more about them selling their music to the furniture ad in the first place. People perceived them as sellouts with zero standards. In addition to this, the Finnish study made the claim that fans were unhappy with Nickelback's perceived lack of originality. When you listen to Nickelback, you think a generic rock song not pushing the envelope. Nickelback is too much of everything to be enough of something. They follow genre expectations too well, which is seen as empty imitation, but also not well enough, which is read as commercial tactics and as a lack of a stable and sincere identity. The idea that Nickelback were hated for being a generic risk-free rock band has been theorized everywhere on the internet. In a Reddit thread attempting to discover how the band became so hated, one user wrote, "People hate Nickelback because they represent the idea that a record label can take any band, no matter how bad, and make them popular. The label can use clever PR and good advertising to make loads of money off a band that is just mediocre. People don't hate the band nearly as much as they hate the idea that the band represents," which was followed by a reply reading, "They're a mediocre band that has experienced precisely zero musical growth and exists purely as a vehicle to print money for record labels. They knew they were a mediocre band, didn't care about musical growth, signed on knowing what the plan was, and had no problem with any of it. It doesn't even make sense to hate Nickelback for their music. It's not distinctive enough to be worthy of notice. It's carefully designed to be pointless and catchy. It's a product built to appeal to the lowest common denominator. It doesn't do anything wrong because it doesn't dare to take any risks. To put it simply, instead of Nickelback creating music that's risky and authentic to to them, the band is perceived as having a reputation for putting out whatever music is guaranteed to appeal to the masses, yet it's hard to tell if this perception is even correct. In an interview with Face Culture, Chad Kroger discusses how they've experimented with a bunch of different types of music.
We definitely started off as a little bit of a heavier band, but we found fans in so many different places because we just wanted to write different kinds of songs. So we'd write a song that was way over here and the fans would accept it, and then sometimes we'd write something really heavy and the fans would accept that too.
Before explaining that each band member perceives the music in their own unique way.
Everyone had their own different interpretation of it. One was political, one was religious, one was like corporate.
Which doesn't exactly sound like they were specifically trying to follow some kind of radio success formula. Maybe this point is just another reason the internet made up to justify hating them, because outside of the internet they claim that they're hated by no one. For example, a petition requesting that Nickelback not play at halftime during an NFL game racked up over 55,000 signatures, yet after arriving in the city to play the concert, the band stated that it was nothing but love from the fans.
Playing the halftime, what was that like?
It was very controversial filled, and far less so when we actually got there. Every single human being that we came in contact with in Detroit was like, we love you, we have no idea what this is all about.
Now, there was that one time in Portugal where they walked off stage after having rocks and bottles thrown.
Now, that is fair. It was, like, someone said this, like, can you believe how entitled they were? It's like, you have a rock chucked at your head.
What? I'm gone.
And you tell me that you don't want to, again, a rowdy crowd with horrible audience control. Again, like, that's the fault of the organizer, not the band.
Bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't walk off
as an overall.
Yeah.
The band has been wise in framing the hatred as a long-term positive.
I've been really clear with my guys that all that hate has given our career legs. And that's the thing that scares me the most is if people finally stop hating us.
It's over.
Yeah. If people stopped hating Nickelback, would Nickelback still be a thing?
And that's what I'm saying. Gift and a curse, guys. Sometimes you just got to hold that.
Well, again,
y'all living great lives.
I've looked at this. I mean, you look at haters. I mean, here's the thing. I don't really try and hate on anybody. The only people I truly hate are the people who are truly despicable. Whereas I look at people like, I can't stand them, the Kardashians.
Okay.
I can't for the life of me. I'm never going to hate on someone for making money. So before anyone says, like, oh, you're just jealous of them making money. No.
Not the case.
No. I despise them because I just think that they're shit-tier human beings in the most part. I mean, I look at the only decent ones among them, aren't the ones who are, like, on camera all the time. Mm-hmm. The ones who are on camera all the time, Kim, Kylie, Chloe, all of them, and then their mother. Holy hell.
Oh, man.
I just don't understand, and I don't understand why the popularity stayed with them, and then I realized it. It's because of the hate.
Oh, yeah.
The hate is what keeps them fueled, and that's what basically this has happened with Nickelback. Nickelback is only still around because their haters keep fueling their fire.
Monetize your haters, bro.
Well, and I look at people like Anita Sarkeesian, who controversial figure in terms of the gaming world, and to me, the only reason why she is still around is because of the amount of haters that just threatened her and all that. And again, I can really point to her as one of the biggest purveyors of victim culture, and why she was like one of the biggest purveyors of victim culture in like modern media, because she showed that by playing the victim, you can basically be successful.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. She basically played the victim the whole time, and that's all. And she's counted the dollars on the way to the bank.
Well, we talked about it lightly the other day when you brought up Peppa Pig and like what she'd be preaching. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the same mentality that's sadly taking over the planet in small portions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, play the victim. That's all it seems to be. And Anita, I would say that she's probably one of the worst. I'd say her, Sui Park, Zoe Quinn. Again, all three people are basically, they point to specific incidents where people have gone too far, and they've said, "Oh, that's everybody." Mm-hmm. That's the prime modern day victim mentality. You find the people who have said the worst things about you, and then you equate that to everybody who's saying something negative about you is basically wanting to kill you. Again, I've had
foul play.
Well, here's the thing: I've had people threaten to kill me. I have. Right. I've had people threaten me, the ones that have gone too far, in my mind, truly are the ones. Again, me, I can take that shit. I can take being threatened and told I should just off myself or something like that. I've had that in spades. I've had that like in certain cases. I had that on a live stream. It was about 50 comments in a row of nothing but people telling me to do that.
Right.
A bunch of different accounts. It was basically a raid from Reddit.
Damn.
Basically, they found it was just these people who came together on Reddit and just started bullying the shit out of me, and I banned all of them eventually. But again, just the fact that I was live for about 30 minutes and just got told that nothing but that over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's mentally damaging to
it
anybody.
is.
Yeah.
And then of course, I took it in stride, but then years later I had someone threaten to basically go after my mother. They were just like
no.
And I literally said I said this to the person. I said it about as non-threatening as I could. I said that would be a grave mistake for you.
No doubt.
Not just because of me, but because of everyone else.
Yeah, right.
That is, I'm not one to make idle threats.
You fuck with family, dog. Like,
that
everyone.
to me, again, especially my mom, the person who has sacrificed the most for me and has given me basically the life that I have now, and someone who has supported me very much throughout my life, especially with this YouTube endeavor.
Hell yeah.
I would not be in the position I'm in without her. But again, if I were to do that, if I were to see that and see that one or two people who went too far, and then I see a bunch of comments down below of people being critical of me, because we made a mistake in one video where we were on our phones a little bit too much. As soon as I pick that up, it dings.
That's correct.
As soon as I pick that up. But anyway, I pick it. We were on our phones a little bit too much in one video, and people were critical of us. And here was what I said. At first, I was defensive about it, but then I realized, you know what? To them, they perceive it as us being distracted by that, and that's their point. Okay, and it's just like, we're sorry if that's the way you see it. We're sorry for being on our phones too much. That's we'll
try
knock
and
it
tone
off.
it down.
Yeah, and it took a few videos, but eventually people got over it.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, if I would have seen that, and then I would have equated basically, all those people out there who told me to do all this, basically end myself and all that. If I would have done that, then honestly, that would be like the prime victim mentality. It's like, everybody out there just wants me to end myself. Like, what's the point of doing that? There's no point.
You can't satisfy anything with that choice. Man.
No, and here's another fact of, like, everyone out there who wants to get into YouTube, who wants to get into content creation, here's a number one lesson everyone needs to take to heart. Lesson 1, you are never, ever, ever going to please everybody.
Never.
And you should never try.
No.
You should never try to please everybody.
Worst mistake you can make.
Yes. By doing that, you doom yourself to basically just be caught up in the whims of other people. Dude,
you'll take your own personality if you do that.
Yeah. The truth is, there are people out there right now who objectively hate you for no other reason than the fact that you were born. That's a fact. You could cure cancer. You could cure AIDS. You could build all the bridges. You could, shoot us off into space. You could basically make us space faring. You could, make everyone immortal. There would be always one person out there who hates you just for the fact that you were born. That's it. And I hate to say it, but taking that one person and then putting that person's thoughts and saying, "Oh, everyone else is critical of me. That's all how they all think." Don't do that.
Come on, man.
You end yourself. You end your own aspirations before they even have a chance.
Believe in yourself, man.
Yeah, self-belief is a powerful thing.
Facts.
Anyway, we gotta end this here, everybody. This was how Nickelback became the most hated band ever by Sunny V2. If y'all want to see more, be sure to check out Sunny V2 and also check out D's World. By the time you're watching this, hopefully the first video will be out on his channel.
Yeah, and, very excited.
And until next time, everybody, signing off, I'm Nate.
Yo, I'm drawn up, man.
And we'll see y'all later.
Hell yeah, peace.